Okay, please tell me if you can see the PowerPoint presentation. Can you see uh, the PowerPoint presentation that I have prepared for you? Is it visible? Is the PowerPoint presentation visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so as you can see, you have in your syllabus just the first book of Paradise Lost, and this is the picture of John Milton, who is the poet. His dates are 1608 to 1674. Now, in this PowerPoint presentation, I'll be giving a very short introduction to John Milton, his works, main works, and also a little bit of an introduction on Paradise Lost. Now, John Milton, he was one of the greatest, of course, of the poets, English poets, second only to Shakespeare. And he was born, as you can see, he was not only a poet but also a prose writer, a major prose writer of his time. That is in the 16th, 17th century. Though, of course, he is best known for his epic poem Paradise Lost, and which has established him as a central figure. He was a scholar, he was a political thinker, he was a defender of religious and civil liberty during those times, which were quite turbulent times. And I will just be explaining. Just a moment. Yes, so let us move on. He was born on 9th December in London, England, to John Milton Sr., a prosperous scrivener and musician. A scrivener is a kind of a notary. He was also a musician, and Milton, he imbibed his love of poetry and his love of music from his father. From 1620 to 1625, he studied at St. Paul's School, where he received a strong classical education in Latin, Greek, and other uh, and Hebrew literature. In 1625, he entered Christ's College, Cambridge. In 1629, wrote the poem on the morning of Christ's Nativity, one of his earliest major works. 1632, received his MA degree from Cambridge and retired to his father's house at Houghton for private study. In 1634, he wrote the masque Comus. In 1637, he composed Lycidas after the death of his friend Edward King. This is an elegy. 1638 to 1639, traveled through France and Italy, met important European scholars and intellectuals, including Galileo Galilei. You must be knowing about Galileo, the Italian astronomer. In 1642, married Mary Powell, a marriage which was unhappy, and it led to Milton writing a number of pamphlets on divorce. 1644, he published this famous book called Areopagitica. This is a famous argument for the freedom of the press and against censorship. 1649, supported the Puritan government under Oliver Cromwell, became Latin secretary. 1652, became completely blind but continued to write with the help of assistants and his daughters. 1660, monarchy restored under Charles II. Charles II was the son of Charles I. Milton was briefly imprisoned because of his support for the Commonwealth government. 1667, published Paradise Lost, his masterpiece. In 1671, he published Paradise Regained, which was a kind of a sequel to Paradise Lost, and the drama Samson Agonistes. In 1674, he died on November 8 in London and was buried in St. Giles Church, Cripplegate. So this is in short the main events in Milton's life. I've just mentioned them so that you might know about him. Now let us move on to the sources of Paradise Lost. How did he come to write this great poem? The sources of Paradise Lost are quite numerous. They're varied. John Milton drew upon the Bible, classical literature, Christian theology, history, mythology, and Renaissance learning to create his epic poem. So you can, if you, when you are reading the poem, you will come across numerous allusions from the Bible, both the Old Testament and the New Testament, you will come across different allusions from classical literature, Christian theology, history, mythology, Renaissance learning. So it is was a scholar in his own right, and it is very surprising that even after becoming blind, how he remembered all those his readings, earlier readings, and he sort of was able to dictate this wonderful poem. Now, these sources helped him shape the themes, characters, style, and structure of the work. So, this vast learning, it enabled him to uh, shape the theme of Paradise Lost, the characters, the style, and structure of the work. Now, the Bible, among all his sources, the Bible is the chief source. And the Old Testament, the book of Genesis, the Bible begins with the book of Genesis. Genesis means beginning. And in the book of Genesis, you will find the story of the creation of the world, the first man, Adam, and the first woman, Eve, the creation of the Garden of Eden, where they used to live, the temptation by Satan, and the fall of man forms the central narrative of the poem. Now, the books of Isaiah and Ezekiel contributed images of rebellious angels and divine majesty. Psalms, Book of Psalms, influenced Milton's elevated religious tone. So, from the Old Testament, he took all these elements. Now, from the New Testament, there is the book of Revelation. This was the source of the war in heaven and the defeat of Satan. Now, the figure of the Son of God, of course, as you know, is Jesus Christ. And there were the ideas of redemption also, which is coming from the different Christian scriptures were there. The classical epic poets, Milton consciously wrote in the tradition of the great classical epics. The classical epic poets were Homer, of course, the great Greek poet. And you know that Homer was the first poet or in Western literature who wrote the great Greek epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. And Milton, of course, he knew Greek and he had read them, and he was influenced by these two great Greek epics. And you will see the influence in certain, in his use of the epic similes. The epic similes are, very long similes where things are compared with each other. Similes, of course, are direct comparisons, unlike metaphors. The grand speeches that you find in the Iliad and the Odyssey, the heroes, the Greek heroes as well as the Roman heroes, how they delivered grand speeches. Now, the heroic warfare that happened between the Greeks and the Trojans in the Iliad. And in the Odyssey, of course, it is the story of the journey of Odysseus. The invocation to the muse, the here also Milton invokes or addresses his muse, who is of course not the Greek muses, one of the Greek muses, but his own muse, who is called Urania. Now, apart from Homer, he also was influenced by another great writer, and he was, of course, Virgil. Virgil was a Virgil was a Roman poet, and Virgil kind of, he was also instrumental in writing the Aeneid. The Aeneid is his epic poem. Hero is Aeneas. Now, Milton borrowed from the Aeneid the epic structure, the elevated style, the journey motifs, because Aeneas has to leave Rome when it was sacked, the political seriousness that is there. So all these things have been uh, borrowed from the classical poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Now let us move on to the next slide and Greek tragedies. Now there are three important Greek tragedians. Milton admired them very much, such as the tragedians or the dramatists like Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. Uh, their influence appears in the tragic grandeur of Satan, the themes of pride, rebellion, and suffering, the formal speeches, a dramatic intensity. So all these things, he took from Greek tragedy. Now, now let us come to Roman and classical mythology. Milton frequently alludes to classical myths and gods. Now, classical myths and gods, of course, there is Jupiter, or the king of the gods, who is in Greek called Zeus. There is Neptune, Titans, the giants, Hydra, Phoenix. So all these characters or all these things in these uh, classical mythologies, you will find them. So these things are he was influenced by these things. Now there is Christian theology and medieval tradition. Milton was deeply learned in Christian theology. Uh, and the important influences include Saint Augustine, Thomas Aquinas, Protestant and Puritan religious writings. Now, from these sources, Milton developed ideas about free will, obedience and disobedience, sin and redemption, and divine justice. So, as you can see here, I hope you can hear me because this is the staff room and other people have come in and they're talking. Uh, Hopefully, you can hear me. I am trying to speak loudly enough so that you can hear what I am saying. Just follow the slides and you can take down in your as notes. Now, there are certain ideas about free will in Paradise Lost. So Adam and Eve, they were created by God. Adam is the first man, Eve is the first woman, and they have been given free will by God. Free will meaning they can act as they like. So it's not that they have to uh, act according to God's wishes. They can act out of their own free will. Obedience and disobedience. This is also an important uh, topic here because they had to obey God's, order that they should not eat from the tree, the forbidden tree, which contained the fruit, the forbidden fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Sin and redemption, of course, you can understand uh, how Eve disregarded those orders. She ate the fruit, she was tempted by Satan, and Adam followed. Then, of course, divine justice followed. Now, let us move on to the next slide, and here you will find Renaissance and Italian influences from Dante Alighieri. Dante's name, of course, I think you are familiar with Dante's name. Dante is the poet of the Divine Comedy. It's a poem, one of the classical poems in Italian literature. And the influence that Milton garnered from here is the description of hell that you find in the Divine Comedy, the cosmic scale, the spiritual journey. So everything is there. There is another Italian poet called Torquato Tasso, and his Christian epic is called Jerusalem Delivered. Uh, and this influenced Milton's blending of religion and epic form. Now let us come to the historical and political influences. Milton's experience during the English Civil War and the Puritan Revolution shaped the poem. Satan's rebellion sometimes reflects political rebellion and ambition. So Milton, was a supporter of the Republican government, the government led by Oliver Cromwell, and it was against uh, the monarchy. The monarch was Charles I during those times, and ultimately he was beheaded, as you perhaps know, and in 1649. And from 1649 to 1660, 1660 is the year when we have the restoration of monarchy, when Charles II, who was the son of Charles I, he became the next king of England. and the Republican government was dismissed. Now, the themes of liberty, authority, and tyranny echo 17th century English politics. Now, important contemporary figures are Oliver Cromwell. Of course, Oliver Cromwell was the leader of the Commonwealth that was established after the beheading of Charles I in 1649. The last factor, of course, is Milton's own learning and imagination. Milton was one of the most learned writers of his age, and he knew all these subjects: Latin, Greek, Hebrew, Italian, apart from, of course, French. He also knew, most probably, Dutch, and of course English was his mother tongue. So and he had knowledge about science, astronomy, philosophy, so all these things. So if we talk about the sources of Paradise Lost, how did Milton form this idea, we have to talk about all these things. So I think you have noted down all these things. So let us move on to the next slide. Now, the cosmology of Paradise Lost, in order to understand the poem, when we'll be reading the poem in our next class, you need to understand the cosmology of Paradise Lost, how Milton visualized the cosmology. Now, the cosmology of Paradise Lost refers to the structure of the universe imagined by John Milton in the poem. Now, Milton combines, in order to build up his cosmology, the biblical theology, the medieval Christian cosmology, the classical mythology, Renaissance astronomy, and he creates, by combining all these, a vast hierarchical universe. So it is a kind of a, you can see a combination of all these things. He had immense knowledge of the Bible, the theology, that is the religious doctrines expounded in the Bible, then the medieval Christian cosmology, the idea of the cosmology, how the heavenly elements are there in, of course, the Christian conceptions, the classical mythology, what was the idea during the classical times, and during the Renaissance, what was the concept of astronomy there. The main regions of Milton's universe, I'll show you a diagram also later on. And now there is heaven. Firstly, there is heaven where God, of course, God the Father is residing. The angels, who are with God, who fought for God, they are there. And this is the highest and the most perfect realm. It is the dwelling place of God, the Son of God, that is Jesus Christ, and the loyal angels who are loyal to God. So it is a place of eternal light, harmony, and obedience. So obviously, it is a wonderful place. It is full of joy and laughter and happiness and light, as you can well understand. So, firstly, there is this heaven. Secondly, we come to hell. Now, this area, hell, was created after the fall of Satan and the rebel angels. Now, there was this fight, this battle between God and Satan and his, uh, you know, uh, loyal angels who were loyal to Satan. So after Satan lost to God, and the rebel angels who were with Satan, they also lost, God created this hell after the fall of Satan and the rebel angels. And it is a dark, fiery, chaotic prison far below heaven. It is at the lowermost point of the cosmology. Now here Satan created his pandemonium. Pandemonium meaning the capital of Satan. Satan created his own capital because he had been, of course, uh, driven away from uh, heaven. He was one of the leading angels there, and Satan's earlier name was Lucifer. Lucifer meaning the bright one. So now, after his defeat, he is no longer the bright one. He's he has been called. He has come to be called Satan. That is the devil. So hell is another area where Satan, his second in command, Beelzebub, and the rebel angels they are residing. Now we come to the next area, which is chaos, which is a huge, shapeless, turbulent region between heaven and hell. Now, it represents disorder, confusion, and unformed matter. So, this is a kind of a, you can understand from the name itself. Chaos is a kind of a shapeless, turbulent region between heaven and hell. And it represents disorder, confusion, unformed matter, which is Satan has to cross chaos on his journey towards earth. And then there is the world, the universe of man, now created by God after the rebellion in heaven. It is suspended from heaven by a golden chain, and it contains earth, the planets, the stars, and the Garden of Eden. So, this is uh, the world where Adam and Eve were actually earth where the future people would be living. Lastly, number five is paradise or the Garden of Eden. It is located on earth. It is a secluded place. It's a very beautiful place full of beautiful uh, trees and gardens and creatures. It is located on earth and it's the home of Adam and Eve before the fall. It symbolizes innocence, beauty, and the harmony with God. So, this is Milton's cosmology, as you can see here. Milton's cosmology. Uh, Heaven, hell, chaos, the world, and paradise. So, I think you have followed up till now. So let us move on to this next area, which is structure of Milton's universe. And Milton's cosmology is hierarchical in nature. So heaven is a is an area of divine perfection and order. So obviously it is the abode of God, and it has to be the area of divine perfection and order. Chaos is the disorder and confusion, an area of disorder and confusion. Hell is an area of punishment and rebellion because the fallen angels, Satan, along with his fallen angels, the other fallen angels, they are residing there. And they have been punished by God. They have been cast into hell after they were thrown away from, heaven after their defeat. And so it is a kind of a punishment that they are having. And it is a place which is uh, a kind of a dark place where kind of a dull fire is always burning. And everywhere there is, Milton describes this in the course of the poem, and we will be reading that passage, which is a wonderful description of hell. And you will find that there are certain other descriptions. It has a fiery lake which is always burning, and the solid area is also full of fire. It is a solid fire. Now he was influenced by the Bible for his conception of of heaven, hell, creation, Eden, as we know. Medieval cosmology. From there, he got the concept of the hierarchical universe. From Ptolemy. Ptolemy is a Greek astronomer. Ptolemy, he got the idea of the geocentric universe. The idea of the geocentric universe. And as you know, nowadays we do not follow Ptolemy's. Uh, his full name was Claudius Ptolemy, and he was a Greco-Roman mathematician, astronomer, and geographer also. So his idea, it was very prevalent. It was prevalent during Milton's time, and he followed this. From Renaissance science, he got the awareness of newer astronomical ideas. And from classical mythology, he got the idea of chaos, mythological imagery. Now, let us move on to the next slide where I will show you the importance of cosmology in Paradise Lost. And now, the cosmology is important because it reflects the struggle between order and disorder, symbolizes.
His video on করা
Hello? কি বলছো? Are you saying anything? Okay, so let us move on. Now, as you can see from this picture, uh, it symbolizes this kind of a spiritual and moral hierarchy, this emphasizing human free will, and it gives the poem the epic grandeur and the universal scope of the poem that is there. Now, as you can see from this image, heaven is there at the top. It is called heaven or the empyrean. Milton often uh, refers to heaven as the empyrean, EMPYREAN, as you can see here. So it's the same thing. And then chaos occupies the middle void. Here is the chaos. This is the full area of the chaos. So heaven has a quite a substantial area. Hell lies at the bottom. This portion signifies hell, and it is the abode of Satan and the fallen angels. It is a small area, as you can see, and the created world hangs between heaven and chaos. The created world or the universe, it is hanging between by a golden chain, as it was called. So it is hanging between heaven and chaos. So here you have, within this area, you have the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve were staying. So I think the idea of Milton's cosmology is clear to you. You can understand from this diagram, uh, and later on we'll be reading the poem, we will of course will be able to understand the various references that will be made here. Now, I'll give you a very short summary of the first book. You need only read the first book because you have it in your syllabus. But Paradise Lost is a massive work. It is work of in 12 books. So it is almost impossible. Most people, they do not read the full poem. Now, the book one of Paradise Lost opens with John Milton invoking the heavenly muse, starting the theme of the epic. That is the disobedience of Adam and Eve and the fall of man. So, the poem begins with this kind of a statement, the disobedience of Adam and Eve and the fall of man. What happened after the fall of man, after the disobedience? Milton declares his aim, within quotations, to justify the ways of God to men, unquote. So, this is his purpose. He is principally writing this poem in order to sort of, kind of justify the ways of God. It is what God has done. He has done the right thing. And he is a merciful God. And Satan's rebellion, it was an act of defiance, and which led to his fall, and which led to his eternal suffering. Now the action begins after Satan and his rebel angels have been defeated in the war in heaven, and they have been cast into hell by God. So obviously uh, there is this kind of the war that is there, that is not described, that is referred to. But in that war, Satan and his fellow angels, they were defeated. They were cast into hell. They lie stunned on a burning lake of fire. Satan soon recovers and rises proudly from the flames. Though defeated, he refuses to submit to God, declaring that it is, quote, better to reign in hell than serve in heaven, unquote. So this is a famous line. You will have such lines, a kind of certain declarations by Satan, where better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. So he's not going to surrender to God. He's always going to be rebellious. Now Satan calls his chief companion or his second in command is called Beelzebub, and he encourages the fallen angels not to despair. He uh, delivers this stirring speech, and he asks Beelzebub to rise and uh, sort of kind of rebel against God, not to lose hope. The rebel angels gathered together at Satan's command. So the rebel angels who were lying they were unconscious, lying in a state of unconsciousness on the burning lake. They are slowly they are regaining consciousness, as Satan calls them, and they rise up one by one, and they form a kind of a kind of a formation, and they gather together. So Milton has given a kind of a catalog uh, of these devils or the fallen angels. Now you will find Milton has followed some of the important conventions of epic poetry. For example, you'll find in the Iliad there's catalog of the ships, catalog of uh, the ships of the Greeks and the Trojans who are arrayed, in a kind of a pattern before the battle begins. And here you will have the catalog of the devils. These devils are the false gods who were worshipped by different nations earlier. In Christianity, of course, they have come to be designated as the devils. Now, the fallen angels build a magnificent palace called Pandemonium. Pandemonium is the capital of hell. There, Satan summons a great council to discuss how they may continue their revenge against God. So, Satan is summoning a great council. When the poem is coming to an end, you will find that how Satan rallies his fellow angels who had been punished by God like himself, and they vow or they take a pledge that they will continue their uh, opposition against God. They will continue to oppose God. So there is no question of surrendering, and they will take revenge against God. So they decide to corrupt God's new creation, man. So it is not possible to go into a kind of a direct conflict with God, because God is all powerful, because He has this all powerful weapon that is thunderbolt, with which He won victory, as Satan says that He was equal in strength with us, but He only had this thunderbolt which really made the difference. So, in short, book one introduces Satan's pride, his ambition. He is extremely proud. He is still harboring a kind of an ambition to sort of regain heaven, regain his blissful seat, as it is called. There are the fallen angels who had sided with him, and they are shorn of their beauty, their lustre, their grandeur. The setting is hell, as you will find, because the whole action of book one it takes place in hell, and the central conflict that is uh, described here is the rebellion of the fallen angels led by Satan and Beelzebub, and the divine authority of God. So this is, of course, uh, as you uh, as you can see, what I have tried to tell you through these few slides. So I thought that it would be beneficial for you, just because before we start the text, before we start reading the text, it would be beneficial for you to know the background and some of the important, uh, you know, themes that are there. So the main setting is hell. The main character Satan, Beelzebub. There are many fallen angels. You'll find their names. I'll give you a list of these fallen angels. You need not memorize all these names, because questions do not really are set from them, but from these areas. But you should just know the names of these devils, the main ones. That is the as I told you, the rebellion against God is the major theme. The building of pandemonium, which occurs towards the end of book one, and some of the epic features. Because from Paradise Lost, you will get book one. You will get a number of questions, and one of the questions is what are the epic features. So the epic features would be, I'll discuss this, of course I'll give you notes later on. Some I'll be uploading material on the LMS, so I hope you are checking the LMS regularly, because we have uploaded uh, certain materials. All the teachers have been doing that, so please do check the LMS. Now, the epic features of invocation, epic similes, grand speeches, catalog of devils, which I have already sort of told you. So this is the introduction, and I will end here. I will stop sharing the screen with you, and I hope that you've been able to follow whatever I have shown you till